So working from home is perhaps here to stay. How does it impact your business then?
Well, obviously, it's a broad-based approach. It really depends on what industry you are in. It depends on what geography you're in and what culture you're in. For us here in Asia Pacific, very varied. Generally speaking, we've been in prolonged lockdowns in this part of the world. And you can start to see this starting to take its toll on a number of staff who are keen to get back to work in the region. And I think it's very important to look back at 9 months ago, pre-COVID, when we were really in a world of reinforcing the importance of office in terms of collaboration, innovation, creating culture of an organization, the values of an organization, and attracting talent. So we do think that those critical elements of running a company and the office as a tool to run the company will come back in 2021.
All right, so, I mean, one size doesn't fit all. People have had different types of lockdowns. Some countries have fared better than others. Where do you see that demand then next year coming?
Well, I think if you look at demand in 2021, obviously some of the traditional sectors, the finance sector, the service sector, are still I think, in decline. And I think that decline is not necessarily about work from home. I think that's more indicative of what's happening in the industry in terms of retrenchment of headcount. But certainly globally, particularly in Asia Pacific, there are sectors which are still seeing growth. That would be the tech sector, particularly. We're seeing the logistics, e-commerce sector growing, insurance is growing, gaming is growing, and then obviously the healthcare sector are all growing. So whilst part of the industries are in sort of negative mode, some are in positive growth mode, which is propping up the demand for office space in the region.
And tell me a little bit about the contours of what's likely to happen with your business in the months ahead. I mean, you're looking for opportunities in obsolescence. I don't know what that quite means. And you also seeing a lot of dry powder on the sidelines too as well. And I think what you term also a move up the risk curve. Can you just explain?
Well, maybe touch on that obsolescence. I think one of the things that we've seen throughout 2020, in a way, we were seeing trends pre-COVID, but COVID came along and actually was an accelerator or a catalyst of significant change. And some of that change has been around the health and safety in the workplace. And that's what that obsolescence term comes in. You know, we've looked at the portfolios across the region. About 40% of office space in the region needs to be upgraded. And to an investor, that represents about $400 billion of capital upside, which of course is where investors are looking for that capital upside. So that's a kind of exciting opportunity that people are looking for. You know, during the whole of 2021, we do believe investors will be very focused on looking for defensive strategies, looking to new asset classes. I think they'll continue to chase what we would see as stable income, and there's still this kind of insatiable appetite for yield. So there are some new growth sectors, new asset classes coming into the market that are appealing to investors. And a couple of those I would include logistics, which is probably the most sought after asset class, certainly in Asia Pacific, and assets like data centers on the back of, really both of those on the back of growth in e-commerce.
So in terms of the growth in e-commerce and demand for logistics, what kind of growth are you anticipating in the next 12 months?
Well, in terms of volumes, the logistics world in 2020 was trading volumes up 20%. The data center world was up 200%. So we're certainly looking to see similar trends into 2021. I think, obviously, this is a very compelling story, particularly logistics in Asia Pacific. You know, at the moment, 20% of all retail sales in Asia Pacific are done online through e-commerce, which, you know, against a global benchmark of 14%. And, you know, China is a big driver of that. Online sales in China currently at about 37% of total sales, going to an incredible kind of 60% by 2023. So those are huge drivers of the logistics sector. And, you know, we believe by 2024 that Asia Pacific itself will account for 50% of global logistics spend. That is why this asset class, strong fundamentals, and that stability of income that investors are looking for today.
What's interesting, Anthony, is that we're expecting greater efficiency in the logistics space. You know, the use of robots. We're already seeing how drones are delivering parcels now. How will this impact demand for industrial assets?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's all about. If you look at the majority of the sort of emerging markets, particularly India and China, the big markets in the region, and also Southeast Asia, if you look at the supply chain compared to Europe and the US, in many ways, the infrastructure, the supply chain is not mature, and it's not capable of providing the goods at the speed that they're required with that demand in e-commerce. So there's a whole program within both the major countries in India and China, for example, to upgrade the quality of the supply chain, to automate the supply chain through robotics, which you mentioned, and of course to solve for the last mile delivery issue, which, you know, if you're guaranteeing 24-hour delivery, you have to find that last mile centers, which is where we see some of that obsolescence that you mentioned, and, you know, repurposing many existing assets to facilitate the last mile delivery.
We talk about potential. How about the risk?
I mean, I think the one that people still talk most about is retail and obviously hospitality. Both of those kind of asset classes in 2020 have had a tough time. Retail's off about close to 40%, and the hospitality is off close to 60%. But we do certainly see opportunity in retail, and I think, you know, people would say that retail, you know, as it was, is never going to be the same. But retail is in fact e-commerce. So retail is actually logistics and fueling the logistics sector. And we see a huge opportunity, if you're talking about obsolescence, to look at retail obsolescence, to look at really the whole experience of retail, changing the way the bricks and mortar works in the shopping centers, and potentially looking to repurpose the assets themselves. And we've seen a lot of this already, generally shopping centers on good land, good locations. And we're seeing repurposing, even last mile deliveries, education purposes, offices, much more entertainment purposes. So that repurposing of retail is actually an exciting opportunity, and many investors are looking to capitalize on that.